She was selling water in the burning sun to survive. I bought every bottle just to impress her. She looked at me like I was everything wrong with the world. And you know what? She was right. But this isn't a story about a rich boy and a poor girl. It's about two people who had to break each other's hearts to finally understand what love actually means. Welcome to the Voice of Reality. We bring you real-life stories, true, raw, and unfiltered, for people who actually want to listen and learn. You know, sometimes life teaches us lessons in the most unexpected ways. Let me tell you about a girl named Sarah and a young man named Daniel. This is a story about love, pride, and the painful journey of learning what truly matters. Sarah wasn't born into comfort. While other students at Pacific Coast University worried about which party to attend or what designer bag to carry, Sarah worried about making rent. She worked harder than anyone I've ever known. You'd see her everywhere on campus, selling bottled water at the basketball courts under the blazing sun, restocking shelves at the campus convenience store late into the night, serving drinks at the Blue Horizon bar until her feet ached. She never complained. "Hard work makes you rich," she'd say with that determined smile of hers. Every dollar mattered because back home, her father was drowning in gambling debts, and her mother threatened to leave almost weekly. Daniel was different. He was the son of a tech mogul, the kind of guy who'd never checked a price tag in his life. His father had built a software empire, creating apps that connected millions of people across continents. Daniel was charming, brilliant, and used to getting everything he wanted. Girls whispered his name in hallways. Professors praised his effortless intelligence. On campus, he was royalty. The first time they really met was at a basketball game. Sarah was there selling water, $3 a bottle. The supermarket sold them for $2, but as she told one complaining student, she'd carried them all the way here in the heat. That extra dollar was for her effort, her time, her survival.
Daniel noticed her that day.
Something about the way she defended herself, the fire in her eyes, made him pause. On a whim, maybe to impress his friends, maybe because something stirred in his chest, he bought every bottle she had. 3 whole boxes. "Give everyone free water," he announced, like some generous prince. Sarah should have been grateful. Instead, she looked at him with suspicion. She'd seen guys like him before, playing hero for applause, then disappearing when the crowd left. But Daniel kept showing up. At first, it was a bet with his best friend, Lawrence. Lawrence challenged him to ask Sarah to dinner, certain Daniel would get rejected for the first time in his privileged life.
And he did get rejected.
Sarah saw right through him. "Are you betting?" she asked, her voice flat with disappointment. That rejection changed something in Daniel. For the first time, someone had said no. For the first time, he had to work for something. And strangely, wonderfully, he found himself wanting to. Lawrence, stuck with his own 3-day promise after losing the bet, tried to understand. "Why her?" he kept asking. "What makes her special?" Daniel couldn't explain it. "It just felt right," he'd say, which drove practical Lawrence absolutely crazy. So, Daniel tried again. He started small. When Sarah delivered packages to dorms, he'd be there in the hallway, pretending it was coincidence. When she tutored struggling students for extra cash, he'd book sessions he didn't need, just to sit across from her. He learned she loved Hawthorne candy, so he'd leave pieces on her textbooks. He discovered she studied late into the night, so he'd bring coffee and sit quietly nearby, just keeping her company. The other students talked, of course. Daniel's childhood friend, Rebecca, warned Sarah away. "You're not his type," she said, though her own feelings for Daniel colored every word. The girls in Sarah's dorm gossiped endlessly. Some admired Sarah's luck. Others, like her roommate Victoria, whispered cruel things about social climbers and people who didn't know their place.
Sarah tried to resist.
She'd seen enough romantic movies to know how these stories ended. The rich boy gets bored. The poor girl gets hurt. Tale as old as time. But Daniel was persistent in a way that felt genuine. When Sarah fell asleep during a tutoring session, exhausted from working double shifts, he didn't wake her. He just sat there, watching her peaceful face, and gently cleaned the ink smudges from her cheek. When she woke embarrassed, he pretended nothing had happened, just asked if she wanted to grab dinner. The moment that changed everything came during exam week. Sarah was stressed beyond belief, juggling 3 part-time jobs and finals. She'd accidentally left her lucky coin behind, a treasured gift from her parents before college, meant to bring her success. Daniel found it, and instead of just handing it back, he understood what it meant. He saw past the medal to the hope it represented, the family pressure, the desperate wish to make something of herself. "I found this," he said simply, pressing it into her palm. "I know it's important." That night, Sarah's phone broke. It was old, cheap, held together with prayers. Daniel noticed immediately. The next day, he showed up with a new one. "It's a loan," he insisted when she tried to refuse. "Just so I don't worry when I can't reach you." The gesture terrified her. Accepting felt like crossing a line, like admitting she needed him. But the warmth in his eyes, the genuine concern, broke through her walls. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll borrow it." They started dating officially after an elaborate confession that Daniel orchestrated with help from half the campus. Balloons, flowers, a crowd of witnesses. It was everything Sarah had never wanted, too public, too showy. But when Daniel asked, nervous for once in his confident life, "Will you be my girlfriend?" something in her heart said yes before her brain could object. The early days were sweet. Movie dates where Daniel would smile and say he didn't care if they missed the beginning, as long as they watched together. Late-night talks where they debate economics and life. He'd tease her about being too serious, and she'd roll her eyes at his carefree attitude. But underneath the sweetness, fault lines were forming. 2 people from 2 different worlds, learning they spoke different languages even when using the same words. Being Daniel's girlfriend changed Sarah's life in ways both wonderful and terrible. Suddenly, she wasn't invisible anymore. People knew her name, but not for the reasons she'd hoped. She was Daniel's girlfriend, not Sarah, the finance major with the highest GPA in her class. The attention made her uncomfortable. Girls who'd never spoken to her before would ask invasive questions. "How did you get him? What's his family like? Do they have money?" As if Daniel was a prize she'd won rather than a person she cared about. But the real problem started small, in ways that seemed silly to argue about but cut deep nonetheless. Daniel wanted her time. All of it if possible. He'd text throughout the day, "Thinking of you, miss you. When can I see you?" Sweet messages that felt like chains. He'd plan elaborate dates without asking if she was free, then look hurt when she had to work. "Can't you take the night off?" he'd ask, genuinely confused. "I'll pay you what you would have earned." Sarah would try to explain that it wasn't about the money. Not exactly. It was about responsibility, about being dependable, about not being the kind of person who flaked on commitments. But Daniel heard excuses. He heard her choosing minimum wage over him. The basketball game was supposed to be special. Daniel's team was playing the championship match, and he practically begged Sarah to come. "Just this once," he pleaded. "Skip work. Watch me play. Everyone will be there. I want you there." Sarah meant to go. She really did. But then her manager called, desperate. Someone hadn't shown up, and could Sarah please cover the shift? The overtime pay would help with rent. And it was just one game, right? Daniel would understand. Except he didn't understand. Not at all. Sarah watched from the store's security monitor as she worked, seeing glimpses of the game on her phone. She saw Daniel playing distracted, missing shots, getting into a shoving match with the opposing team. She saw his team lose. She saw the disappointment on his face. When he finally found her that night, after she'd gotten off work, he'd been waiting outside her dorm for 2 hours, holding wilted flowers, looking lost. "Why didn't you come?" His voice was quiet, which was somehow worse than if he'd yelled. Sarah explained about the shift, the extra pay, the emergency at work. Valid reasons, practical reasons. But Daniel just looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "You chose work over me," he said simply. "It's not about choosing," Sarah tried to explain, frustration rising. "It's about responsibility." Responsibility to who? A boss who doesn't care about you? A job that pays you nothing? What about responsibility to me, to us? They fought more after that. about time, about priorities, about what mattered. Daniel couldn't understand why Sarah wouldn't just let him help financially. I have money, he'd say, as if it was that simple. You don't need to work yourself to death. Let me take care of you. But Sarah needed to work. Not just for money, though that mattered. She needed to prove she could survive on her own. That she wasn't with Daniel for his wallet. That she was worth something beyond being some rich guy's charity case. The movie date disaster was almost funny, in hindsight. Daniel bought tickets, picked a romantic film, waited excitedly. Sarah showed up 20 minutes late, rushing from her shift at the campus store. Daniel smiled and said it didn't matter, they hadn't missed much. Such a small thing, such a kind response. But Sarah felt the weight of it, his patience wearing thin, his forced cheerfulness. That night, walking home, Daniel tried to give her a new phone. Her old one had finally died, completely. It's a loan, he insisted, which they both knew was a lie. Loans get repaid. This was a gift dressed as temporary help. Sarah took it because she needed it and hated herself for needing it. You know what a girlfriend should be like? Daniel asked one night, trying to joke but meaning every word. She should listen to her boyfriend more. Spend more time with him. Sarah stiffened. So, a girlfriend is just someone who does what you say? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Daniel? Because it sounds like you want someone who has nothing else in her life except you. The biggest explosion came at the convenience store. Sarah was working the register when a difficult customer started complaining about the plastic bag fee. 20 cents. That's all it was. But the man made a scene, acting like Sarah was personally scamming him. Sarah kept her professional smile, explaining store policy, staying calm even as the customer got louder and more aggressive.
She was used to this.
You learn to swallow your pride in customer service. Then Daniel walked in. He'd come to surprise her, maybe take her to dinner when her shift ended. Instead, he found some middle-aged man practically shouting at his girlfriend over pocket change. Daniel saw red. What's your problem? Daniel stepped between them, tall and protective and furious. The customer sputtered, but Daniel was just getting started. He matched the man's volume, defended Sarah's honor, made a whole scene. Sarah's manager came running. Other customers stared. What kind of store is this? Daniel demanded. Treating customers like this, hiring people who… Daniel, stop, Sarah pleaded, mortified. But Daniel was on a roll, playing hero, protecting his girlfriend. He didn't see her face turning red with embarrassment. Didn't notice the manager's expression darkening. When the customer finally left, muttering about complaints and reviews, the manager turned to Sarah. You're fired. What? No, please, I can explain. Just go, Sarah. You've been nothing but trouble. Daniel tried to intervene, but Sarah stopped him. She gathered her things in silence, fighting tears, and walked out into the parking lot. Daniel followed. Hey, it's okay. That job was terrible anyway. You don't need. You got me fired. Sarah finally exploded. The parking lot argument was ugly. All the tensions that had been building for weeks finally erupted like a volcano. I was trying to protect you, Daniel shouted back, genuinely confused why Sarah was angry instead of grateful. That guy was being awful to you. I could have handled it. That's my job, Daniel.
Was my job.
I needed that money. I'll give you money. How many times do I have to say this? You don't need to work in these terrible places, letting people disrespect you. It's not about the money. Sarah's voice broke. It's about me doing things myself. Not depending on you. Not being some kept woman who exists only in your orbit. Daniel stepped back like she'd slapped him. Is that what you think? That I want to control you? Don't you? Every time I work, you complain. Every time I'm busy, you act like I'm choosing something over you. You want me to quit my jobs, let you pay for everything, just be available whenever you want me. That's not love, Daniel. That's ownership. That's not fair. Daniel's voice went quiet, dangerous. I care about you. I want to spend time with you. Is that really so terrible? You care about the version of me that fits into your life. But this is my life, Daniel. These jobs, this struggle, this is who I am. And you keep trying to change it, to fix it, like I'm some problem that money can solve. They stood there in the harsh fluorescent light of the parking lot, both breathing hard, both feeling the ground shift beneath them. I don't understand you, Daniel finally said, and it was the most honest thing he'd ever told her. I really don't. I'm offering to help, to make your life easier, and you act like I'm insulting you. Sarah's laugh was bitter. That's the problem, isn't it? You'll never understand. We're from completely different worlds. We're the same age, Sarah. We go to the same school. What's so different? Everything. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. You've never had to choose between eating and paying rent. Never had to work 3 jobs just to stay in school. Never had to watch your parents destroy themselves over money. You live in a world where problems disappear when you throw cash at them. I live in a world where no amount of cash is ever enough to feel safe. Daniel wanted to argue, to say she was wrong, but looking at her exhausted face, her defensive posture, he realized she was right. He didn't understand. He'd been playing at helping, thinking his money was the solution, never realizing it was part of the problem. So, what are you saying? He asked quietly. Sarah met his eyes, and hers were filled with tears she refused to let fall. I'm saying maybe we should break up. The words hung between them like smoke. You don't mean that, Daniel said, but his voice was uncertain. I do. Sarah's voice was steady now, resolved. This isn't working. We keep hurting each other. You need someone who can be the girlfriend you want, someone with time, someone who doesn't have to work constantly, someone from your world. And I need to focus on surviving, on getting through school, on taking care of myself. I can take care of you. I don't want to be taken care of. Sarah's composure finally cracked. Don't you see? That's the whole problem. You want to rescue me, but I don't want to be rescued. I want to save myself. Daniel stared at her, this stubborn, proud, impossible girl he'd fallen for. Part of him wanted to fight, to argue, to make her see reason. But another part, the part that actually loved her, recognized that fighting would only prove her point. Fine, he said, and his voice was cold now, pride wounded. If that's what you want, break up. See if I care. Daniel. No, you're right. We're too different. I should find someone for my world, right? Someone who actually appreciates what I can offer. Someone who doesn't treat every kind gesture like an insult. Now it was Sarah's turn to feel the sting. That's not what I... Goodbye, Sarah. Daniel turned and walked away, spine straight, refusing to look back. Sarah watched him go, tears finally streaming down her face. She'd done the right thing. She knew she had. So, why did it hurt so much? The next few weeks were terrible for both of them. Daniel threw himself into distractions, parties, studying, anything to not think about Sarah. His friends tried to help. Lawrence suggested finding someone new. Rebecca, still harboring her own feelings, offered comfort that Daniel was too heartbroken to notice. But Daniel would catch himself looking for Sarah on campus. At the basketball courts where they first met. In the library where she studied late at night. He'd pull out his phone to text her before remembering he couldn't anymore. Sarah was no better. She threw herself into work with even more intensity, picking up every shift available. Her roommates worried. Even Victoria, who'd gossiped about Sarah's relationship, felt concerned watching her work herself to exhaustion. You need to rest, her friend Lily said gently. You'll make yourself sick. I'm fine, Sarah insisted, but she wasn't fine. She was running from feelings, from regret, from the loneliness that ate at her in quiet moments. She'd scroll through old messages sometimes, late at night. Daniel's silly jokes. His good morning texts. His genuine concern when she was stressed. Had she been too harsh? Too proud? Was she pushing away something real because she was scared? No, she'd tell herself firmly. She'd made the right choice. They were too different. It never would have worked. But her heart didn't believe her head. The universe, as it often does, had other plans. Plans that would force both of them to confront what they'd lost and what they'd learned. Life has a funny way of bringing people back together, especially when they're trying hardest to stay apart. For Sarah and Daniel, that moment came at a place called the Blue Horizon Bar. Sarah had picked up shifts there after losing her convenience store job. The pay was better, the hours brutal, but she needed the money. The bar was nice, upscale enough that tips mattered, casual enough that students could afford it. She learned to mix drinks, to smile through exhaustion, to handle drunk customers with grace and firmly. She was good at it. The manager, William, appreciated her work ethic. Her coworker, Amy, became a genuine friend. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt like maybe she'd be okay. Maybe she could move on. Then one night, a group of students came in for a birthday celebration. Sarah didn't recognize them at first, different department, different social circle. The birthday girl, Jennifer, was sweet and bubbly. Her friends were loud but harmless. "We should invite Daniel," someone suggested. "He never comes out anymore." Sarah's heart stopped. She kept mixing drinks, pretending she hadn't heard. "He's still messed up about that breakup," another voice said. "With that girl. What's her name? Sarah something?" "Good riddance," a sharp voice replied. "Probably Rebecca." She was completely wrong for him anyway. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she poured. She'd gotten good at being invisible, just another worker in the background. She hoped they wouldn't notice her. But Jennifer was kind in that genuine way some people are. "Sarah works here, you know," she told her friends. "We should be nice. She's always been sweet to me." The conversation shifted, but the damage was done. Sarah knew Daniel might show up. Every time the door opened, her heart jumped.
He didn't come, though.
The party continued without him, and Sarah breathed a sigh of relief mixed with disappointment she wouldn't acknowledge. Then a man in an expensive suit sat at the bar. Mid-30s, confident, with the bearing of someone used to success. He ordered whiskey, top shelf, and left a generous tip that made Amy whistle. "Now that's the kind of customer we like," Amy whispered. The man returned the next night, and the night after that. Always sitting at Sarah's section, always ordering the same thing, always tipping well. On the fourth night, he introduced himself. "I'm James," he said, extending a hand. "James Cooper. I work in investment banking." Sarah shook his hand professionally. "Sarah, can I get you your usual?" "Actually, I was hoping we could talk." James smiled, and it was charming in a calculated way. "I've been working up the courage to ask you something." Here it comes, Sarah thought. She'd dealt with enough bar flirtations to know the pattern. "My colleagues and I have a bet," James continued, surprising her. "They bet I couldn't get you to agree to dinner. If you say yes, even just as an act, I win a significant amount of money. We can split it 50-50. All you have to do is say one word, yes." Sarah stared at him. The honesty was refreshing, at least. No pretending he was genuinely interested. Just a business transaction. "How much?" she asked, practical as always. James named a figure that made her eyes widen. Her half would cover rent for 2 months. "I admire your directness," James said. "No games, no false modesty. Just straight to business." "That's rare." Sarah should have said no. Should have recognized the echo of how things started with Daniel. Another bet, another game. But the money would help. And it was just dinner, just acting. Nothing real. "Okay," she heard herself say. James's face lit up. He immediately called his colleagues, made a show of winning the bet, and transferred Sarah's half on the spot. Then he surprised her again. "I know we made a deal," he said, "but I'd actually like to take you to dinner for real. Not as part of the bet. Just because I find you interesting." Sarah hesitated. "I don't know." "No pressure. Think about it. Here's my number.
Text me if you want to."
If not, no hard feelings." He left, and Sarah stood there with a phone number and more money than she'd made all week. Amy was practically vibrating with excitement. "Girl, he's perfect. Rich, handsome, actually respectful." "He's too old for me," Sarah said automatically. "He's maybe 35. That's not old. That's established. Unlike certain college boys who play games and cause drama." Sarah knew Amy meant well, but the comparison to Daniel stung. James was stable, mature, direct. Everything Daniel wasn't. Everything Sarah thought she wanted. So, why did accepting his number feel like betrayal? She texted him that night. "Tomorrow works for dinner." His response was immediate. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7." Sarah told herself this was fine. She was single. She was allowed to move on. Daniel had probably already found someone new anyway, some girl from his world who understood his language. But the next evening, getting ready for dinner with James, Sarah felt hollow. She picked a simple dress, did her makeup, tried to feel excited. This was a fresh start. A chance with someone who wouldn't try to change her, who understood her drive because he shared it. The knock on her door came precisely at 7. James stood there with flowers, tasteful, expensive, exactly right. They drove to a beautiful restaurant overlooking the harbor. He pulled out her chair, ordered wine, asked about her studies with genuine interest. It should have been perfect. James was everything a sensible girl should want. Successful, attentive, age-appropriate, with clear life goals and financial stability. But Sarah spent the entire dinner comparing him to Daniel. Daniel's messy charm versus James's polished perfection. Daniel's impulsive gestures versus James's calculated romance. Daniel's genuine confusion at their differences versus James's smooth understanding. She realized, sitting across from this perfect stranger, that she didn't want perfect. She wanted real. She wanted someone who frustrated her and challenged her and made her feel alive, even when it was painful. She wanted Daniel. The realization hit her like a wave, leaving her breathless and terrified. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you were wrong. For Sarah, that moment came at the end of her dinner with James, under the stars by the harbor. James walked her back to campus, ever the gentleman. At her dorm entrance, he turned to her with a knowing smile. "You're thinking about someone else, aren't you?" he asked gently. Sarah's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's okay." James laughed softly. "I've been around enough to recognize that look. There's someone you can't stop thinking about." Sarah nodded, tears surprising her. "I thought I was doing the right thing. We were so different. I thought it would never work." "Can I give you some advice?" James asked. From someone who waited too long to take risks. Different isn't always bad. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. The person who challenges us, who sees the world differently. They teach us things we'd never learn otherwise. But what if different means impossible? What if it means possible in ways you never imagined? James countered. "Look, I can tell you're the kind of person who thinks everything through, who makes practical choices. That's admirable. But love isn't always practical. Sometimes you have to take the leap." Sarah thought about Daniel's impractical gestures. Buying all her water bottles. Defending her honor even when she didn't need defending. Waiting 2 hours in the rain just to see her. None of it made sense on paper. All of it made sense in the language of caring. "Thank you," she told James sincerely. "For dinner, for the advice, for being honest." "For what it's worth," James said. "Whoever he is, he's lucky. Don't let pride keep you from happiness." Sarah watched him leave, then stood there in the darkness, gathering her courage. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages with Daniel. The last text was from weeks ago, his cold goodbye. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could she say? Sorry felt too small. I miss you felt too vulnerable. I was wrong felt too simple for something so complicated. Finally, she typed, "Can we talk?" She hit send before she could overthink it. Then she waited, heart pounding. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. No response. Sarah's heart sank. Maybe she'd waited too long. Maybe Daniel had moved on. Maybe. Her phone rang. Daniel's name on the screen. She answered with shaking hands. "Hello. Where are you?" Daniel's voice was rough, like he'd been running. "Outside my dorm." "Why?" "Stay there. I'm coming." The line went dead. Sarah stood there, confused and hopeful and terrified. 10 minutes later, she saw him running across campus, hair messy like he'd just rolled out of bed, wearing mismatched shoes like he'd grabbed whatever he could find. He stopped in front of her, breathing hard. "You texted," he said unnecessarily. "I did." They stared at each other. All the things Sarah had planned to say evaporated. How do you summarize weeks of regret in words? "I was wrong," she finally said. "About so many things. I was so focused on being independent, on proving I didn't need help, that I pushed away someone who genuinely cared. I turned your kindness into an insult. I made you feel like loving me was somehow wrong. Daniel opened his mouth, but Sarah kept going. She needed to get this out. You were right that I didn't let you in. I was scared. Scared that if I depended on you, you'd leave and I'd fall apart. Scared that accepting help made me weak. Scared that we were too different to work. She took a shaky breath. But I was wrong about that last part. We're not too different. We just love differently. Sarah. I don't need you to rescue me, Daniel. But I do need you. I need your optimism when I'm drowning in stress. I need your impractical gestures that remind me life isn't just about surviving. I need someone who sees me, really sees me, and doesn't try to change me but doesn't let me hide either. Daniel stepped closer. I was wrong too. I tried to solve your problems with money because that's the only solution I knew. I didn't understand that your work wasn't just about income, it was about dignity, independence, proving something to yourself. I made everything about us, about my needs, without really listening to yours. We're both pretty bad at this, Sarah said with a watery laugh. Terrible, Daniel agreed, and he was smiling now, that beautiful smile she'd missed so much. But maybe we can be terrible at it together. Learn as we go. How would that even work? Sarah asked. I still need to work. I still can't be available whenever you want. I still have responsibilities that don't include you. I know. Daniel took her hands. And I need to learn that your independence isn't rejection. That you working hard isn't you choosing something over me. It's you being the amazing, determined person I fell for in the first place. We'll figure it out. Set boundaries. Communicate better. Actually talk instead of assuming. That sounds hard, Sarah whispered. Probably impossible, Daniel agreed. We'll fight. We'll frustrate each other. You'll work too much and I'll complain. I'll be thoughtless and you'll call me out. It'll be messy and complicated and nothing like the easy relationship either of us imagined. So why try? Daniel pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. Because when I'm with you, I'm more than just my father's son or some rich kid. You see me, Daniel, just Daniel, and you don't let me get away with anything. You challenge me to be better. And when you smile, really smile, it's like the sun coming out. Sarah felt tears sliding down her cheeks. When I'm with you, I remember that life isn't just about surviving. You remind me to actually live.
To take breaks.
To laugh. To believe that maybe things can be okay. So, what do you say? Daniel asked. Want to try again? For real this time, with honesty and compromise and all the messy parts. Sarah answered by kissing him. It was salty with tears and awkward with emotion and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. When they finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying, Daniel had one more question. Does this mean you're my girlfriend again? Yes, Sarah said. But on one condition. Anything. You have to let me be myself. Let me work when I need to work. Support my independence even when it's inconvenient. And trust that choosing my responsibilities doesn't mean I'm not choosing you. Deal, Daniel said immediately. And you have to let me care for you. Not fix everything, not solve all your problems, but support you. Bring you coffee during late-night study sessions. Celebrate your victories. Be there when things are hard. Let me be your partner, not your savior. Deal,
Thanks a ton.
Sarah
You're a
whispered.
lifesaver.
No
They
problem.
stood there
Have a
under the
good one.
campus lights.
You too. See ya.
Two people from different worlds who decided their differences could be strengths instead of weaknesses. It wouldn't be easy. Sarah would still struggle with accepting help. Daniel would still want to solve problems with money. They'd fight about time and priorities and all the complicated things that relationships are built on. But they'd fight together. Learn together. Grow together. Because sometimes love isn't about finding someone exactly like you. Sometimes it's about finding someone so different that they show you parts of yourself you never knew existed. Someone who challenges you to be both stronger and softer. Someone who makes you realize that two worlds can meet in the middle and create something entirely new. 6 months later, Sarah would still be working, but with better boundaries. Daniel would still offer help, but with more understanding. And together, they'd build something neither could have created alone. A relationship based not on one person saving the other, but on two people choosing, every day, to show up for each other. That's the real story of love. Not the fairy tale, where everything is easy, but the messy, complicated, beautiful reality where two imperfect people decide that together, they're perfect enough. And sometimes, that's the happiest ending of all.
The end.
The real message here isn't about rich or poor, struggle or ease. It's about respect. About seeing your partner as a whole person, not a problem to fix or a prize to win. About understanding that love means supporting someone's journey, even when you don't fully understand it. About learning that different doesn't mean incompatible, sometimes different means complete. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to remember that real value isn't measured in money, but in kindness, character, and love. Thank you for listening, and may you always recognize the truly valuable people in your life.